Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your time. I know it's getting close to the season, a lot to do, but we have a lot to cover because this organization has done a lot because of its amazing staff and our amazing executive director, Andy Wink. So I'm going to turn this meeting over to Andy at this point, and he'll introduce some of the concepts, starting with our market outlook. Andy?
Thanks, MJ. Just to give you guys all a sense of what we're going to cover in this meeting, we'll quickly go through the board election results. I'll do a Sockeye market outlook. Then we're going to talk about, most of our time will be looking at what the BBRSDA activities and programs have been doing. We'll get a Pebble Mine update from Catherine Carscallon and Elizabeth Herendeen. We're going to talk about our financial position. We'll also talk about COVID protocols and resources that we have for the fleet. And we'll end with a Q&A and discussion with board and staff. So we had an election a few months ago. Thank you for everyone who voted in that. George Sonny Wilson Jr. won seat B, and Michael Jackson won seat E, again to extend his term there. So we welcome George to the board, and welcome MJ back to the board. And we're really excited about the upcoming year. If you want to see who else is on the board or committees, there's a link down there below at the bottom. You can go to bbrsda.com/board of directors. And if you ever would like to communicate with a BBRSDA, the full board, specific board members or committees, please feel free to email us at board@bbrsda.com. So with that, we're going to look at the sockeye market conditions heading into the 2021 season. Before we look at 2021, we're going to look back at 2020, and it was an extremely unusual year, as you all know. COVID created a whole bunch of just general business risk, and also increased the cost of operating, both for fishermen, but especially processors. And so, of course, as you all know, we ended up seeing a 70-cent base price, which was nearly a 50% reduction from the 2019 base price of $1.35. And unfortunately, you know, there was really not a lot of transparency around what fishermen could expect as retro payments or profit sharing later on in the off season. And so BBRSDA provided ongoing monitoring of market conditions, and we posted a lot of market info to our website. Hopefully you guys saw a lot of that, and I'll talk more about where you can find that later if you didn't. And we predicted that there was going to be an expectation of significant retro payments. And so I want to acknowledge Trident here. They were the first major processor to announce a significant retro. And it was a hard year for many processors, including Trident, that dealt with COVID disruptions at other plants and a major fire. But they paid out substantial retros, especially to their top producers. However, we hope that going forward, there can be more communication so that fishermen can better plan their own business and finances. And, you know, that would be something that would go for all companies. You know, but I do think it's important to acknowledge Trident for announcing a substantial retro, you know, when there was no contractual obligation to do so. So that said, as we saw again in 2020, fishermen were the last to get paid, or at least get paid in full. And while we eventually did see some large retro payments, you know, there was never any guarantee about those in place, at least with most of the major processing companies. We still don't know the exact final average price for 2020, but given the retros, it'll probably end up, I'd say, at least 5 cents below what we had expected, which was around $1.25. And it perhaps maybe even as much as 20 to 25 cents below that sort of expectation. And that average price would include all dry and chilled Bristol Bay sockeye caught by both drift or set netters. So because 2020 was such an unusual and disappointing year, BBRSDA put out a white paper that examined why the base price came in so low and what options are available to fishermen. And if you'd like to read that, if you haven't yet, you can just Google BBRSDA white paper and you should find it quite easily. So let's move on here. Looking at the final prices paid by processor in 2020, BBFA, Bristol Bay Fishermen's Association, collects price information by processor. This effort has been sponsored by BBRSDA in each of the past 2 years. And so for the large processors outside of Leader Creek and Silver Bay, the final price depended a lot on how much you caught. The very top price was paid by OBI to those who caught over 200,000 pounds, and that was $1.40, as you can see there. The top average price reported was for Silver Bay fishermen, who were paid $1.35 for a season average, and that would be not including dividend payments. I will note that Leader Creek and Silver Bay paid the same average price at $1.33 for non-late season fish. And so if you want to know more about where your price and volume slotting match up, I would encourage you to see the full price sheet on BBRSDA's market and value info page, or you can also view it at bristolbayfishermen.org. And again, I know we have some folks on the phone. We're going to try and explain what's on the screen as best we can. But again, if you can join via the link, you'll be able to see the presentation. Otherwise, we'll do our best here. Here's a chart that hopefully you've seen before. We showed a 6-year average here just to kind of mix it up a little bit and give more of a longer term kind of average and approach to it with the trend line. But basically, when you look at 2020, we don't know yet how much the wholesale value was worth. So the top of each of these bars on this graph that we have here in front of us shows what was the total wholesale value of selling Bristol Bay sockeye salmon, and then how much of that got paid to fishermen, either as a base price or quality premiums and retros. And so you can see the time series on this. Since 2013, the percentage paid to fishermen has gone up pretty steadily and pretty dramatically, at least, as far as how much change we saw in the past. In 2018 and 2019, fishermen appeared to get over 50% of the wholesale value, over 60% in 2019. But for 2020, it's kind of a guesstimate as far as how much the retros and quality premiums will end up being and how much the wholesale value will be. But, for right now, the kind of guesstimate is if wholesale value is down by maybe 5%, and if the retros and that come in, if the total ex-vessel value comes in a little over 200 million, that maybe around 42% is what fishermen would have seen. So definitely something to keep a close eye on here, and we do. I think it's a very helpful tool for fishermen. Let's look at the market outlook summary for this year. Wholesale market conditions appear very favorable heading into 2021 compared to 2020. On the sort of pro side, you've got big reduction in pandemic risk and business risk. We all know a lot more what this pandemic means for the seafood and wild salmon business. We saw really strong demand and performance in 2020. We had low inventory that we've got right now. We've got lower expectations for supply, or at least, excuse me, maybe not lower, but at least we don't expect supply to be real high. And we've got a weaker dollar. On the other hand, we are also expecting to see higher processing labor costs, continued high COVID costs. Like I said, there's poor performance in other fisheries, and then a big potential harvest in Bristol Bay. And shipping challenges could also be something that impacts Bristol Bay sockeye. But overall, I'd say the takeaway here is that market conditions approaching the 2021 season appear to suggest a higher final slash average ex vessel price. But of course, there's no contract and there's no guarantee to that. So just to kind of bullet point, what can fishermen do to make the most of 2021? We're seeing Bristol Bay sockeye move at premium prices, and that requires premium quality. Premium prices also require premium marketing, which I think we do a fantastic job of, and we can really get the fleet's help in that. Doing things like participating in the photo contest, which we'll hear more about, providing us with a fisherman profile. One of the biggest strengths that we have as a brand in a fishery is the story that we can tell. It's a really good food story. And I'd say now more than ever, consumers are looking for authenticity. They want to buy and support brands that really are authentic and are in line with their sort of core beliefs and how they would like the world to work. So the more that you can help us tell your story, the better we can do that in the most authentic way. Also, we'd love to hear project ideas and proposals. Continue to help us fight against the Pebble Mine, and to keep track of all of what's going on. I think the easiest way to do that is to just get and read our Waypoints e-newsletter. We tend to send it out about once a month, and it's a really great summary of what's sort of happening with BBRSDA, as well as what's happening with the fishery, and how we're trying to deliver on this mission for all of you guys and make this fishery as valuable as it can be. So if you want to see more market data, more market analysis, I would encourage you to go to bbrsda.com/market-value-info. Let your inner nerd out. And you can also see that on our homepage by going under For the Fleet and down to the Market and Value Info section. So with that, we're going to go into our program updates, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Frances Birch, our program specialist, to talk about our outreach program.
Great, thank you. I'll be speaking to our outreach program, and the goal of our outreach program is to engage with the fleet and others to further the organization's mission. So to communicate about the organization as a whole and of all of our other programs. And for the last year through 2020 and 2021, our outreach committee consists of Nell Zuri as the committee chair, Melanie Brown, Michael Jackson, Reba Temple, and myself as the staff lead. First, I want to speak to a couple outreach programs that will be ongoing throughout the fishing season this summer. First, the BBRSDA supports the KDLG fishery reports, which I know as fishermen we're all familiar with and look forward to. And this year we're supporting KDLG so that they can have an additional, I believe it's a third fish reporter to really deepen the coverage of the fisheries. So looking forward to getting that information from out on the water here shortly. Next is a crew training pilot program. So this is brand new. A member permit holder, Anthony Vlahovic, came to us with this idea, and we liked it. We wanted to support it and help Green Crew kind of accelerate their transition to their first season in Bristol Bay. So that will be held here soon, June 7th through 9th in Naknek. And I think we've gotten a lot of interest. I think there are a few spots if you know of Green Crew who will be up there and want to jumpstart their season a little bit. Okay, at this time I'm going to transition to screen sharing the website to speak to some other outreach and where you can access them on bbrsda.com. See if I can transition my screen share. Okay, great. So this is our main homepage. For those of you on the phone, it's bbrsda.com. I hope you have seen it before. But here, Andy pointed it out, but market information, so more of that great information that Andy just shared is here on the top menu and For the Fleet. And this is where a lot of great info lives. So For the Fleet, and then down to market info and market info and market and value info. There we go. So here's, if you want to dive into a lot of those charts that Andy has and more information in depth, this is where to find it. Back on the homepage here in this black button, it says Bristol Bay Sockeye Salmon Merch Store. And this is a new project in 2020, and it's hats and hoodies and t-shirts with the Bristol Bay Sockeye Salmon logo. It's a way for fishermen to share the brand, you know, while they're out and about living their daily lives. Fishermen are our best ambassadors for the brand, and I know as a fisherman we're proud of it and like to rep the brand as well. And yeah, these are sold just at cost to cover the cost of making them. In 2020 was the first year that BBRSDA did an annual report, and as permit holders, you received one with your ballot here earlier this year, but especially this year with not being able to meet with members in person as much, we felt it was an important way to communicate the work of the RSDA and get a tangible report in the hands of our members. So that's available on a homepage here. There's a featured publications list, and the annual report is linked here. So if you want to share it or view it digitally, you can do that here. And on the topic of reports, every time we fund a project, BBRSDA asks for a final report outlining, you know, what was accomplished. And those are available again on our homepage up here at the top under projects and project reports. So if there's one in particular you're really interested in or just want to explore that, this is a good place to learn more info about all the different projects BBRSDA has going. Whoops. And we always share these reports, and as Andy mentioned, everything that's going on in our Waypoints newsletter. And that lives again on our homepage in this column on the right. There's a black sign up button, and then you can always click here to see the most recent newsletter. So this one was the one we just sent about a week ago. And yeah, really good way. If you read this every month, you would have a really good idea of what the BBRSDA is up to. And it is just once a month, so it's not flooding your inbox. I recommend members sign up for that. And also, if you're not getting it or you did sign up, make sure that info@BBRSDA is in your contacts so it makes it into your main inbox. I know we all get so many emails these days. So in addition to just kind of staying up with what's happening, there's lots of ways to get involved, and we certainly encourage that. And whether that is, you know, something on the smaller scale, like submitting photos to our photo contest, all the way to, you know, submitting and participating in a project, we encourage all of that. So here for the photo contest, which we just launched for 2020, you can read the details here and for the fleet, and then down to photo contest. We just got this launched, and yeah, we hope you'll bring your cameras this summer and get some good shots. We do have some tips kind of what we're looking for. We of course don't want bloody or bruised fish, really pretty much common sense, you know, what you would want people to see the best, show our fishery in the best light. Another way to do this, another way to kind of share your Bristol Bay story in promoting the Bristol Bay brand is in creating a fisherman profile. So here under people in the top bar down to fisherman profile form. And this is where it's like kind of guides you through an interview. It asks, you know, who do you typically fish with? Tell us about your crew, describe Bristol Bay. And this links also to past fisherman profiles, so you can check out what other people have done. And this gets used in our marketing because, as Andy mentioned, it's, you know, we have such a cool story behind salmon to share, and the fishermen and people are what makes that unique. It's also really fun just as a fisherman to click through and learn a little bit about some other members of the fleet that we've probably seen on the water. But yeah, our marketing experts say that the posts and other content with fishermen and more information about fishermen get a lot of clicks and traffic. People really are curious. So that is, we encourage you to do that. And last but definitely not least is project proposals. So most all the projects we do come from an idea someone has about how to better the fishery, right? And we're always open to that. So here again on the homepage up top, projects, and submit a project proposal. And this is where you can find the form to do that. We're happy to help. So if this is something you want to do, but this page looks intimidating or you just have an idea, please do contact us in any way that you prefer, and we're happy to help you submit a project proposal. But yeah, we are open to ideas, and keep it in mind this summer as you're fishing. If you think of something that would really, you feel would make a difference, we'd love to hear about it. All right, let me transition back to the slideshow here. Okay, and here's the last thing, just the newsletter is a great way to stay in touch. And then also on Facebook, BBRSDA, we try to post, as things happen, post up articles and opportunities and links there. And then we also have an Instagram, which is a little bit more just for fun, but it's a great way to stay connected, and it's Bristol Bay all day. All right, with that, I'll pass it to Andy.
Yeah, so just want to put out a call for anybody who might be interested in being on a BBRSDA committee. So we have committees, what we call operating committees for outreach, marketing, sustainability, and quality. And we'd really like to have 2 to 3 additional people in addition to board members be on those committees. Committees are, experience in these areas, it's preferred, but not necessarily required. In committees, for the committees that we have, they really do drive a lot of the focus, and they recommend projects. They do a lot of the homework and the digging and the guiding on where our activities are going to be, where our focus is going to be spent in these different areas. And so they're really vital to what BBRSDA does. And if anybody is interested in that, we'd like to hear from you. You can reach out to us at info@bbrsda.com. Let us know what you're interested in and why you think you'd be a good fit for that. The committees tend to meet about once to 3 times per quarter, so it's not a huge commitment. We're hoping that we can get committees populated after the season, probably mid-August, maybe that's more like mid-September, but the faster that we can get our committees up and running, for this next annual cycle, the better. So keep that in mind as you're out there fishing this year, and we'd love to hear from people that are interested in working with us. And on that point, I'll just mention in response to Mark's question, committee members do not necessarily need to be permit holders. If you have really strong background in one of these areas, that can be very helpful for the RSDA as an organization to have folks like that on committees. This past year, we intentionally wanted to get a few set netters on committees. So, that's an option as well. Certainly, we're an organization funded by drift netters, for drift netters, but we'd really like to find ways to bring set netters into the fold. And so if you're interested in a committee position, or someone that might be, even if they're not a permit holder, they could still help out the fleet. So with that, I think we'll go into our marketing program and hear from Lilani Dunn.
Well, this is a perfect transition because I'm starting off with our committee that is an integral part to steering the marketing program. We have Michael Jackson as our chair, Reba Temple, and Nels Yuri. I'm the staff lead. My email is available there. And before I begin, MJ, was there anything that you wanted to say before I dove into a program update, our goals, and how we achieve them?
I just wanted to mention that we also have another permit holder, Keith Singleton, as an advisor to marketing, as well as Ben Blakey from Northline Seafoods as an advisor. They're not committee members, but their expertise in marketing is called upon when needed. I just wanted to let people know that we're using resources outside of just the board members for our committees.
Thank you, MJ. All right, so I will continue. Our goal for the marketing program is to increase fishery value by raising the demand for Bristol Bay salmon. And how we do this is promotion, branding, marketing tools, and through PR. I want to note that our pilot year was in 2017, and the wonderful team out of Anchorage, Alaska, Rising Tide Communication, helped launch this and continues to be our agency on record. They help us with any creative material. They give advice on what the consumers want, what retail partners want, what food service and restaurant is needing as well. In regards to retail, we are working with Mark Jones. He is a 25+ year veteran in the seafood industry. He helps strengthen our relationships with existing retail partners. And between Mark, Christine Fanning from RTC, and myself, we are exploring new opportunities with other retail partners, as well with e-commerce, especially after a year like last. And I've of course, want to thank my fellow team members with the BBRSDA. We're a lean team, as you can see, and Andy and Francis do so much to help the marketing program succeed. And Becky always makes sure that we stay within our budget and things are flowing as the year continues and we approach the end of year and look into the next year to budget accordingly. All right. So starting off with retail, last year was quite the successful year, especially with the pandemic and more consumers having to cook and eat at home. Our average sales lift from our retail partners was 52%. These are lists of our partners. We have a lot of returning ones, which is a huge sign of the ease it is to run promotions with us, the success of the promotions, as well as the strength of our brand. Costco, Hy-Vee, Heinen's, King Super, City Market, QFC, Rose Hours, Rouse's, and Wegmans are returning partners. We had our first international retail partner, Save On Foods, which is located up in Canada, and a market that we have been trying to penetrate for some time in Southern California, the chain Vons, Albertsons, and Pavilions. Some praise we've received from retail partners, quoting Hy-Vee, "We were very pleased with the results of our partnership with Bristol Bay Sockeye Salmon." And quoting QFC, "Bristol Bay has a very strong brand that messages really well with our clientele who are more tapped into social responsibility and sustainability more than ever." And I am going to do hopefully a smooth transition to our retail marketing website. Here it is. It's hosted on our marketingbristolbaysockeye.org site, which is, I want to point out, separate from our BBRSDA.com. And retailers are directed to come to this site. This is where people can actually do a wholesale inquiry. And when they do that, they type in what kind of salmon product they want, what sockeye product they want, if it's fresh, frozen, any specialty products, as well as the quantity. And then we also direct them to use our Fish Finder site if the amount is fewer than 100 pounds. All this information is used to create lead emails that we send out to our processor and industry partners. This became live last August, and I want to say just recently started to really pick up in popularity. And I will say that there's been a lot of success, and both sides of the equation, the wholesale inquiry person, as well as, of course, the salesperson on the other end who receives the lead, has been extremely helpful with our assist there. On this page, there are links to our media library, our asset library, and I'll dive into that a little bit deeper in a bit. We have training resources for our retail partners to choose from, digital, of course, as well as point of sale materials. And there's a way for them to contact us as well. And then, of course, the list. And transitioning back to our shot slideshow, let's see. We launched at the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021, we launched the Salmon Cooking Guide. And this has been extremely successful and is still gaining momentum. I will walk through engagement numbers at the end of the marketing program update, but I will say that the Salmon Cooking Guide was a home run for sure. It showcases a wide range of simple, easy cook-at-home recipes and techniques to help overcome the key challenge for salmon consumers with how to prepare it, especially after last year. Consumer market research and retailer feedback bolstered a dramatic change in consumer habits, and this was a necessary call for cooking methods and recipes with easy to find ingredients. We responded with this curated custom website that aims to inspire confidence in home cooks. It features contributions of cooking demonstration, expert tips, and more from leading culinary experts. YouTube star Adam Ragusi is one, renowned Seattle chef Tom Douglas, and some Alaska-based culinary influencers like Maya Wilson, Kayla Thomas, and even Bristol-based salmon experts Susie Brito and Abayu Moore. And lastly, award-winning Texas barbecue pitmaster Jess Pryles. And I will transition back to show our video that we created to help promote the Salmon Cooking Guide. All right. So that was the promotional video. Let's see. If you haven't already, I do encourage you to go to the website yourself. It's very interactive. I think one of the huge success points of the cooking demos is that they are just really intriguing. They're well shot. Obviously, they're easy to do, but they're the perfect length of time for people. I would say anywhere between 20 to 40 seconds. I feel like anything longer than that, people begin to lose interest. One of our next assets that we created, again, at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021 is our buyer's guide. And this buyer's guide we've shared with different industry partners and of course our retail partners. It's really handy, it's visually appealing, and it has, it addresses a lot of quality components with sockeye, how you harvest it with care, different sustainable certifications that they will see that correlate with Bristol Bay sockeye, as well as fish size and addressing that the different sizes of H and G. and very important. And I know a lot of you see it out there when you're in retailers, but we try so hard to continue to reiterate the importance of best practices in regards to retail display. So we give 8 tips right there, loud and clear, right in the middle there. And we're really hoping that they continue to try to utilize our tips on how to best display Sockeye. And then, of course, just similar to the point of sale site that I showed you, we have visual images of what they can order from us to help promote Sockeye Salmon. And let's see, this just feeds right into it. This is our media library. Sorry, my internet is not the strongest. I might have to forego this, but our media library is accessible to anyone to have access to. Brand guidelines and licensing, of course, are listed there, but they have a wide range of images of harvesting, of Bristol Bay, of fishermen, photo contest winners, of course, as well as recipes, raw product images, and videos. I apologize if that's not pulling up. Moving on, super exciting. This is new as of just a few weeks ago. We launched Fast, Wild, and Easy, and this is another campaign. Falls in the genre of consumer education, and it's really piggybacking on the momentum from last year and the increase of seafood consumption at home. Fast, Wild, and Easy is just as described. They're recipes that require very few ingredients, ingredients that are at home, so that you don't have to have another trip to the grocery store. There are assets that we've created for it, a booklet that has 4 recipes in it. This is available to our direct marketer partners as well as our retail partners. We have a window cling for our brick and mortar retailers so that they could put them up in the seafood section or frozen section area of seafood, as well as an 11 by 14 poster. There is a QR code that leads to the Fast, Wild, and Easy website. I'm gonna cross my fingers, hope that this perhaps opens, and it is, thank goodness. This is one of the recipes created. It's a rosemary herb threaded way to prepare sockeye by grilling or oven roasting. You've got the salmon grilled cheese sandwiches, as well as a fried rice with pineapple and bacon recipe. Side note here is that Costco loved this recipe, and they actually did a quick and easy recipe that was hosted on the Costco site, I want to say earlier this year. And then there's this very good potato chip crusted salmon recipe as well. The Fast, Wild, and Easy recipes are hosted on our marketing site, and it all kind of feeds into, just kind of echoing what Francis and Andy were saying, the very unique part of our brand, which is you and the story that is told there. I know Francis touched on it, but the top 3 posts on the Bristol Bay Sockeye Salmon social media posts were fishermen related. While my internet is working, I thought I'd just quickly go back to the media library. I know I spoke to it, but you can see that it's organized in such a way for retailers to access training resources, brand and social media assets, photos, like I mentioned, of harvesting, etc., recipes, and recipe cards, as well as videos. Direct marketers are always top of mind for the marketing program. What's really great is that we started to work smarter with our assets. And before we think of diving into any one campaign, not only do we think about how it will pertain to our retail and food service partners, we also think about how this can also help support direct marketing. And we have two quotes from two wonderful direct marketer partners, Steve Currian from Wild for Salmon and Kara Berlin from Thunder's Catch. I am constantly in contact with direct marketers via phone, via email. It's really exciting to hear from people who have been doing it for years and years, but then really cool to hear from people who are just starting out and just beginning to have presence at a local farmers market, and all are extremely important opportunities. And it's pretty cool to see it from the ground up. I lost my cursor, but I wanted to, I really don't know where my cursor is. Let's see, here we go. I will do it the old fashioned way. We have a page specific to direct marketers here where they can also order point of sale directly. Most of the assets look very familiar. Like I said, we are thinking of how we could overlap with retail assets and direct marketing assets. All right, and into Q1 2021 marketing metrics. So kind of recapping everything I dove into, our retail promotions expanded over 12 store chains. 7 of them were contracted promotions and 4 of them were non-contracted promotions. As this number increases of non-contracted promotions, it's a really true testament to the strength of our brand. And like I said, the ease of working with our marketing program. And what that means is that there's not a budget set aside for these non-contracted promotions to happen. It's, I'll give for an example, King Super in Denver. They just want to do a fresh promotion with us in the fall. In the summer, they want to do frozen promotions with us in the new year into spring. And they simply just go to the website or ask and order kits for all their various stores to receive, and that's it. So it's a very, it doesn't take as much hand holding as the contracted promotions. Like I said, that just kind of is a testament to the success of our brand of these promotions. So hopefully we see more of that in years to come. With our retail promotions, 902 store count, and the way we've quantified our impact store is the amount of stores that have Bristol Bay Sockeye promotions and multiplying it by the number of weeks or the duration of the promotion. So this number is close to 7,000. We of course are wanting to see that continue to increase in time to come. Industry-wise, our marketing website has over 400 sessions. We have close to 300 website users. Our media library that I showed you has close to 300 media library sessions. We have 168 registered users that use the media library, and our marketing newsletter, which is different from the Waypoints newsletter, has over a 30% newsletter open rate. In regards to our consumer website, we have over 50,000 sessions just as of Q1 this year. People are spending close to 1.5 minutes of time on the site. And we have, of the 54,000 sessions, about 46,000 users are unique there. And our videos have more than 3,000 views. And really exciting, our fish finder app has over 2,000. And that's not just visiting the app, that's actually typing in a zip code and pulling up results for it. Social media is growing. We have over 26,000 Facebook reach. Our engagements hovering about 5% average. Our reach with Instagram is quite high, more than 100,000 with 6,500 engagements. We have over 400 followers increasing in Q1, and our YouTube is also doing quite well. We have 12 new subscribers, over or close to 640 hours watched, and our reach there is close to 7,000. And in this past year, seafood has just grown overall as a category in grocery stores. We've capitalized on this. We're working with momentum with not just the salmon cooking guide, but with our Fast, Wild, and Easy. And we're hoping to continue to engage on the consumer level, continuing to educate them, but also increasing the value for retailers and for our fishery by having that demand on the consumer level. And Andy, if you wanted to speak to just the trend of Bristol-based sockeye in the past handful of years, I'll keep the screen up for you.
We looked at how the different search terms have grown in popularity, and people are searching for salmon, but you can see there that people are searching for Bristol Bay sockeye specifically. That search term has grown more since 2017 than sockeye salmon or Atlantic salmon or just salmon in general. So that's not to say that necessarily people are searching for it more, but the growth in that search term has increased by a higher percentage. And that holds true for the whole year as well as for the non-summer months. What we saw in the search data was that typically, the searches for sockeye and Bristol Bay spike in the summer during the season, but we're doing our best to try to make Bristol Bay sockeye really a year-round product and something that people think about eating year-round. And so this is kind of another data point to suggest that we're on track with that. We see really good results from the marketing and retail promotions that we do. This is just kind of another way to quantify that. And so I wanted to share that with you.
Thanks, Andy. All right, I will stop sharing my screen because I believe that is the last slide for marketing. Yes, and I will hand it back over, I believe, to Francis in the quality program. Francis, I think you're still muted.
Thanks, Lilani. Yes, I'm back here to talk about the quality program. The goal of the quality program is to maximize the harvest value by improving the quality of Bristol Bay salmon. And for the last year, our quality committee has been chaired by Tim Cook as the committee chair, Mark Buckley, Mark Niver, Patrick O'Neill, and myself as the staff lead. Oops. All right, I'll start with a couple 2021 projects. The first one is expanding RSW service capacity. So BBRSDA is helping support the wages of 3 RSW apprentices with 3 different companies, or 3 different RSW companies for the 2021 season. So the short-term goal of this is to increase the capacity and service to more boats, more hands working on RSW this season. And the long-term goal of this program is to really involve and train more technicians in this field, and especially of course, in Bristol Bay. So this is the first year of this program. We're excited that we have three people on the ground this summer, and we hope to grow and include more training in this program in the future, depending how it goes, but we think it'll go well. Next, I want to speak to the Certified Quality Reader Quality Monitoring Program. And we have two great partners in this, Digital Observers, which are on the ground there, or on the tenders rather, checking quality of the fish. And then Seafood Analytics is the company that created this technology, which is the Certified Quality Reader. For those of you on the phone, it's a handheld device that measures salmon quality. And it does that, it uses electrical currents. It's non-invasive, nothing's poking into the fish, but it uses electrical currents to measure the cell degradation of salmon. And this can be used to really tell the quality of the flesh. As we know, sometimes fish could be, it could get beat up and then chilled down to a temperature that reads a good temperature, but this is a way to measure quality considering more than temperature, and we're looking forward to seeing the results of this. This was an ongoing project in 2020 with about 5 of these readers in the bay, and this year we're tripling that data collection amount, so we're hoping to have about 15 of these readers out on tenders with different seafood companies testing quality. So we'll have a lot bigger data set to look at, and this information from these readers is available online in that report section that I showed online. It's a kind of a digital dashboard that shows the different quality fish, and Seafood Analytics has it set up in a way you can kind of see how the quality trends throughout the season and look at the other interesting factors there. So we're excited to have more data to look at and learn from next year. Next, I'm going to speak to a couple ice projects. New this year is a Nushagak ice shuttle. So BBRSDA is contracting a vessel to transport ice from up in Clark's Point from the Bristol-made ice barge out towards as far out as weather permits, but out to the south line of the Nushagak, making ice available and easier access for fishermen who are fishing out there. The vessel is a Chignik seiner called the Alaska Rose, so Nushagak fishermen, keep your eye out for that. And the price of ice to fishermen will be $310 a ton, and they'll be standing by on Channel 78 for your ice needs. Very much in conjunction with this project is the ice barges, which BBRSDA supports in partnership with the BBEDC and the companies that run them. So the ice barge Bristol Lady is, and I should correct this, OBI. OBI Seafoods operates it in Naknek, and the Bristol Maid is operated by Trident and the Nushagak. Our insulated ice bag program is ongoing. So if insulated bag for your ices would help in your operation, we offer a 65% reimbursement for those insulated bags, capped at $2,500 per permit holders. If you have a big order, that's the highest we reimburse. Lastly, for the quality program, we received a draft, but we're just looking forward to seeing the full results of the Northern Economics Processor Survey for 2020. This is a study that's been, or a survey that's been conducted for many years now, and it's a survey of the processors on insights on the quality and then product form trends as well. And 2020 set an all-time record of 94% of the drift boat catch at 94% of it was chilled, which was a pretty good jump from 2019, which I think was around 84. And so about 11% of this, so kind of the section between 83 and 94% is chilled with ice. And then there is, of course, the remaining 6% of the catch that was not chilled. And I wanted to point out that, so the quality program, the quality projects that are ice specific make up about 6% of the organization's budget. And there is, based on this data, the catch, there is about 17%. So these 11 that's chilled with ice, and then the 6 that of course isn't chilled that could benefit from ice programs or does not have RSW to rely on for chilling. So as we see RSW increase really rapidly, which is incredible for the product of salmon, there is still a need for some ice, and we hope to see that continue to decrease, but we want to be there to chill as many fish as possible. All right, that brings us to the sustainability. I will drop my share back to you, Andy.
Okay. There we go. So our sustainability committee for the 2020 to 2021 period was comprised of Mark Niver, who is our chair, Michael M.J. Jackson, Patrick O'Neill, and Nicholas Dowie. The goal of our sustainability program is to support sound science to ensure the sustainability of a biologically and economically healthy and productive fishery. So we engage in activities to protect salmon habitat as well as stock abundance. Some of the things that we do, that we fund through our sustainability efforts, is the Bristol Bay Funding Collaborative, and the BBFC maintains core fishery management programs and funds them. Back in, I believe it was 2016, I've got a note about this here. You know, Fish and Game started to see very drastic budget cuts, and that was going to negatively impact the fishery management programs and research that was going to be done. And so with fishery management programs that are less well funded, you know, we could have seen a reduction in the amount of fish being able to be harvested in the fishery. And so BBEDC and their nonprofit wing for this research effort, Bristol Bay, BBSRI, Science and Research Institute, as well as BBRSDA and processors really came together to fund these efforts. So last year in 2020, the BBFC paid out $775,000 to fund Bristol Bay salmon management. And that adds up to about 29% of the total management costs for the Bristol Bay salmon fishery. And for the RSDA, our share of that was 24%. Processors matched another 24%. And then BBEDC through BBSRI funded roughly 50% of that. And there was also some really appreciative contributions from individual fishermen, you know, different nonprofits. There was, I think, around 2 or 3% of other funders in there. So this is a very important effort. It's one that we hope doesn't continue forever, because we'd really like to see Fish and Game, you know, fully fund fishery management in Bristol Bay. It certainly produces far more tax revenue for both the state and local communities than it costs to manage the fishery. But it's, you know, in the meantime, it's kind of a no-brainer that we want to have world-class management continue in this fishery. Also to support that, I believe it was last year or the year before, we started funding a second vessel to fish in the Port Moller test fishery. And you know, luckily that BBEDC and BBRSDA were able to do that because it really saved the Port Moller season last year. The Pandalis, which has historically been the primary test fish vessel, was laid up in dry dock and couldn't get out in time for the season, you know, partly due to the pandemic. And so the Ocean Cat, which was the second vessel, really shouldered a lot of the weight there. And then I think they did end up actually scrambling and getting a smaller vessel to fish more stations. For this year, we've got a pilot project that's going to do onboard genetic testing. I believe that's on the Ocean Cat, but we're very excited about that because, as you guys probably know, right now the way it works is they have to fly samples out to get tested at a lab in Anchorage, and that can be, that adds lag time, and it can be delayed by weather and all sorts of things. So we're hoping to see that genetic testing can be done on board going forward, and we're testing that out this year. And the funding for that also was shared between BBSRI, processors, and the RSDA. If you want to get Port Molar daily summaries, you can actually get those texted to you. And so text PMTF, only PMTF, to the number on the screen, which is 833-612-1053. Or you can go to bbsri.org, or even just Google Port Molar test fishery, and you'll find that there at those web pages. But that's a great way to get information via text when you're out in the water this year and want to know what's going on with Port Molar. Of course, KDLG also does a lot of great reporting on that, and so tune in to their programming for that. Moving on, other things that we fund in the sustainability program, we've been working with University of Washington in recent years to try to apply artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies and methods to forecasting. And we saw that these methods were able to kind of optimize forecasts, and the UW actually used those approaches in its forecast for this year, and believe they will do so going forward and continue to tweak that and to optimize it. This year, what's new is the scientists with UW are applying these same methods to see if we can get a better forecast of run timing. And so can we get a better understanding of when the fish are going to show up? Obviously, that would be very helpful. So more to come on that. And of course, probably the biggest thing that our sustainability program does is to try to protect salmon habitat. The calling card of this fishery is its incredible natural abundance, and that comes from really the best sockeye salmon habitat in the world. And so we've made significant investments in legal support to oppose the Pebble Mine project. We've set aside funding for commercial fishermen of Bristol Bay, as well as Salmon State. In the past, we've provided funding for United Tribes of Bristol Bay. And so, ever since I joined the organization, we've had extensive collaboration and coordination with other Bristol Bay and anti-pebble groups, because we really don't want to see Bristol Bay turned into a mining district. And we really believe that would kind of be the end of abundant salmon runs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Carscallon and Elizabeth Herendeen to tell you a little bit more about what's happening with Pebble. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, Catherine, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen here, I think. How does that look?
Looks good.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine Carscallon. I'm a lifelong Bristol Bay resident and fisherman based out here in Dillingham, and I'm the director of commercial fishermen for Bristol Bay. And we've operated for about 10 years through support from the RSDA and others, really to just help give a voice to commercial fishermen in the fight to protect Bristol Bay. And we're currently operating through grant support from the Bristol Bay Economic Development Corporation and BBRSDA. So I don't think the whole screen is showing here, but I think this will work. So we're just gonna run through a quick update there. We have a longer version of this presentation that was given at Kodiak Confish. So if you go to the CFBB website, which is fishermenforbristolbay.org, there's about a half an hour version of this presentation if anyone wants to dig into more of the details. But I think the goal today is just to give everyone a quick update on the status of the Pebble Mine, what the current call for protections for our region is, and then of course what you can do to help. So Elizabeth Herendeen has also worked with commercial fishermen for Bristol Bay for a long time and is currently based out of Salmon State and operates businesses for Bristol Bay as well. And she's going to take us away with the update.
Great, thank you, Kat. Yeah, so we're just going to do a quick rundown of what's happened this past year. As Kat said, I've been working on this issue a long time, and I've got to say the last 12 months have been the most interesting and surprising, exciting, and really intense few months. So we're going to skim over a lot. I think there'll be time for questions at the end, though. But a couple of things that I want to draw attention to from the last year is, in July, that's when we saw the Army Corps of Engineers release its final environmental impact statement. And this was a really important moment in the larger federal permitting process, because it was really sort of the last step before the Army Corps released its final record of decision on whether or not to grant the Pebble Limited Partnership its Clean Water Act permit. And so, last July, I think we were really bracing ourselves for the worst, and it really felt like it was inevitable that the Army Corps was going to allow the Pebble project to move forward. And honestly, we were all working, our lawyers and legal teams were busy preparing for litigation because there was just no way the Army Corps could legally allow this project to move forward based on the science, documenting that healthy wild salmon and mining don't mix. So that was in July. And then in August, we started to see a real turn in events that we were not expecting, quite honestly. And it really started to move things in our direction and in our favor. And as much as I roll my eyes at social media, it really was because of some very visible tweets that happened thanks to Donald Trump Jr., who has spent time sport fishing in Bristol Bay and is very passionate about the place and the people there. And so in early August, he posted that he opposes the Pebble Mine. And that really sort of started the snowball of other tweets from prominent people of all kinds and influencers and politicians. We had Tucker Carlson from Fox posting that he was opposed, and he did a few episodes on his TV show interviewing some of our allies in the sport fishing and business community, voicing their concerns. We also saw, then presidential candidate Joe Biden came out with the pledge saying he would stop the Pebble Mine and follow the science and protect Bristol Bay. So August was just a really, just a pretty crazy month, but in a really good way for us. And it really felt like things were moving in our favor. And then in September, and Kat, if you don't mind advancing a slide, and then September, we had another surprise, and that was the Pebble tapes. And, I'm not going to get into them too much other than to say, the Pebble tapes were these secretly recorded videos of Pebble Partnership CEO, as well as Northern Dynasty Minerals CEO. And, they thought they were talking to potential investors when really they were undercover investigators. And the tapes just really reaffirmed what we already knew, which is that the Pebble Limited Partnership does not have any intention of building a small mine. What they submitted to the Army Corps was really just a big lie and a way to get their foot in the door and build the much larger mine that they're envisioning. So it just reaffirmed what we knew, and just, I think, really gave us an opportunity to really have a just big national outcry that this project needed to be stopped. We saw really strong statements from Alaska's members of Congress. After the Pebble tapes came out, both Senators Sullivan and Senator Murkowski, really stood up and said very clearly that they did not support the Pebble Mine moving forward, and, agreed with us that it's the wrong mine in the wrong place. And Senator Murkowski, took another step in forward and saying, she supports long-term protections. And I think that really opened up the door for all of us to be thinking about what does long-term protection mean for Bristol Bay, and to not be stuck in this pattern we're in of fighting the Pebble Mine year after year after year. So we just saw a lot of momentum building in the fall. And then eventually in November, right before Thanksgiving, the Army Corps of Engineers came out with a final record of decision, and they decided to deny the Pebble Partnership its Clean Water Act permit. And again, just a few months before November, we really felt like, approval of the permit was inevitable. So it's just a really dramatic turn of events. I think it just speaks volumes to the power of our collective voices and actions. Like, this was not going to happen on its own. And so, I can't say thank you enough to all of you, to the BBRSDA, and the board members who have been showing up time after time when we needed fishermen there to help, voice your concerns, to members of Congress, to federal agencies and others. Like, it truly made a difference. And I think the Army Corps' decision in November just shows that. And so it's a huge victory, and something I think, we all took some time to celebrate. But unfortunately, the Pebble Mine is not dead and the door is not closed. And we were reminded of this earlier this year when the Pebble Partnership submitted an appeal to the Army Corps to reverse its permit decision. And so the Army Corps has accepted the Pebble Partnership's appeal, which basically just means that the Army Corps is now undergoing an internal review process. And they just recently said they would not come out with a decision about the appeal until next year, so until 2022. So once again, we're in this position of uncertainty and just waiting to see how this process plays out. In the appeal process, there is no opportunity for public comment, or engagement. So we're really kind of stuck just waiting to see what happens, and crossing our fingers. But, it just really underscores again that, this threat is not over, and we are still very much in it. And I think, we can't rest until we really shut the door and nail it shut, and make sure that the Pebble Mine does not continue to hang over all of us and hang over your futures and your family's futures. And so Kat's going to now explain sort of what is our strategy for establishing long-term protections and making sure the Pebble Mine really goes away once and for all. So Kat, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Elizabeth. And like he said, November really opened a lot of doors for us in several ways. The permit, had we seen Pebble granted a permit, we'd be talking about, litigation right now and raising money for lawsuits, and probably see ourselves entangled in years and years of lawsuits. And instead, with the permit denial, it really gave us the window to continue to talk about the protective measures through the Clean Water Act that we've been seeking for years, and also look forward to other options for long-term protections. So at the end of November, early December, the regional entities really led by a tribal consortium, United Tribes of Bristol Bay, and several other regional entities, and they worked with the BBRSDA as well to develop the call to protect Bristol Bay. And it's really a two-step call, beginning with Clean Water Act protections, the 404C action that we've been seeking all along, and a secondary option, with doors opening also with the election and the makeup of Congress changing, and really our two senior senators in Alaska really making up their minds on Pebble and deciding along with the rest of us that it really doesn't make sense for the Bristol Bay region, and Senator Murkowski's words that we not only need to stop Pebble Mine, but we need to ensure that Bristol Bay is protected in an economically sustainable way moving forward. That really gave us the signal that we could start looking and working on longer term protections. So the call for Bristol Bay was released. It's housed on the Stop Pebble Mine website and the supporters for it, and I'll get into that a little later. But really, it's not only an effort to put a real solution on the table, but to also just keep our issue visible, because with the permit denial also came a little bit of loss in momentum. Like Elizabeth said, Biden, and when he was running for election, stated that he would take action to protect Bristol Bay, but with the permit being denied, it it gave a little bit of a false hope that the issue is over, and there, you know, we all celebrated it, but at the same time, we kind of just went right back to work the next day, because the door really is still open at any time for Pebble to come back with a different permit if this appeal goes through. Hopefully the appeal stands, but even if it stands, until there really are protections in place, the permit denial isn't enough. So just a little more detail. This is all refresher, because Clean Water Act protections are what our fleet and the Bristol Bay region have been seeking for over a decade now. And really under the Obama administration, we nearly achieved them, but we're in a little bit of a different situation now, with Pebble having gone through the permitting process and an environmental impact statement done on the area, on the Pebble site. We have a little more information, or a lot more information actually, about what the impacts of a mine, even the quote small mine plan that Pebble introduced. We have really all the information EPA would need to take an action now. So just a little bit of a background: the Clean Water Act authority that gives EPA the option to veto a permit, and it's referred to as the veto authority, but really it gives EPA the option to restrict, prohibit, or deny discharge of mine waste into waters. So it's not necessarily specific to a permit, and it can happen at any time in the permitting process, either before, during, or after a permit is applied for or granted. So right now actually is the point in time where we've had the most information about what the impacts to the region would be, and EPA has full authority to act. So that's really step one in the call, is requesting that EPA initiate the 404C process and use all the information gathered in the environmental impact statement, which really concluded with the Army Corps stating that the Pebble project would have unavoidable adverse impacts to aquatic resources of the area, which is the exact wording and the exact trigger in the Clean Water Act that allows EPA to act. And that the 404C is a process, and it really, the last time around we saw that although we had a friendly administration in the Obama administration, he came out, he saw the region, his EPA initiated the process and nearly saw it through, and we saw delays at the end of it that put us into a new administration, and the action was overturned. So there really is, although we do have years ahead of us, with this administration that stated it's motivated to protect Bristol Bay, we really don't have all the time in the world. And so the push this summer especially is to really call on EPA and ask them to get the process started now, so we don't see what we saw 6 years ago coming into the end of the administration. So like I said, the call was initiated by local organizations. It's been joined by every Bristol Bay commercial fishing organization and many of the processors, and really, I think we're up to about 300 businesses and organizations nationwide, and it's all housed on the Stop Pebble Mine Now website. But if you go and take a look, there's it's really a large and growing coalition. And although we do have a lot of support nationwide, and there are a lot of big names joining into the call for Bristol Bay, I think it's always going to be important for the real voices of the region and the voices who depend on the economy out in Bristol Bay to be speaking directly to our members of Congress. So although EPA does have full authority to act, we need the momentum, and we really did lose quite a bit of momentum with the permit denial. So I think now more than ever, it's absolutely essential that we're calling on our members of Congress, and really just making, although we, through some of our partnerships, we can get 1,000 letters sent, or, even hundreds of thousands of form letters sent in, nothing matters more to your elected officials than your voice, and especially as a fisherman who makes their living in the region and comes home and can speak directly to your members of Congress. So there's a couple phone numbers up on the screen here, but if you're not up in Bristol Bay already, if you don't live up here year round, take the time, look up the phone number and make a couple calls before you head up here. And then just keep an eye out. We'll have our usual outreach going on this summer with options to sign letters to EPA. Just keep an eye out for the take action options that we'll have this summer, because there really is going to be kind of a full court press on the EPA. And then, like I said, the two parts within the call for Bristol Bay starts with EPA action, and then we're looking at options for legislation. So I think just keep your eyes and ears open for ideas floating around this summer. But it really is important that we push on both options, even if in the end we start seeing some redundancies in the options that are out there. We've been here before. We've been to the point where we, very nearly saw 404C protections, got 99% of the way, and then they were overturned at the last minute. So I think really until we see protections in place for Bristol Bay, we just can't let up. Another just push, like I said, just visibility and keeping our issue on the forefront is going to be super essential, especially in these coming months. It's very clear that the Biden administration is friendly to our issue. They've made environmental justice and the trust responsibility to tribes a big priority, and also just protecting regions like Bristol Bay. And Bristol Bay has already had a mention in the America the Beautiful initiative. The more details were just released on that. It's the 30 by 30 initiative, and Bristol Bay had a mention in there. So we know we're on the radar, but at the same time, with so many issues and priorities out there, if we don't stick together and really just be loud and be the squeaky wheel, it's so easy to be overlooked. So throughout the summer, like I said, our voices and Bristol Bay's fishermen, it's just the same as the marketing program. People like to see real people, so we're going to have several video initiatives, and if you're active on social media, keep an eye out for those, and please, all the participation you can take part on. And if you aren't on social media but you have a good camera or have decent photos, there's a phone number here that you can send short videos to, or any kind of photos we're collecting throughout the summer, or just get in touch with us. My email is up there, and I'll put a couple links for our Take Action pages and put my email in the chat. But if you have good video or photos or anything you want to share, help lend your voice to the cause. We've been fairly limited the last couple of years, and we'll be limited this summer with COVID restrictions and travel on getting photographers out there. And so really the fleet is the best voice and the best ambassadors to getting our issue out there. So just don't hesitate to be in touch. And with that, I don't want to take too much time. Elizabeth, I don't know if you had anything more to add, but otherwise I know there will be an opportunity for questions at the end here.
Nothing to add on my end. Thanks, Kat.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks, Andy. And yeah, we just really appreciate all the engagement that the RSDA has maintained over the years. I know we're in this together. CFPB really is kind of just the activist arm of the RSDA's priorities, and we make sure all our work is in line with the RSDA and the regional organizations working to protect the watershed. So we just appreciate the continued support.
Yeah, thank you very much, Catherine and Elizabeth. And if you're up in the Bay this year, when you're up in the Bay this year, and we've got fishermen from almost all 50 states, if not all 50. So I would, ask that you encourage them to reach out to their members of Congress and have them let their members of Congress from all across the country know that Bristol Bay is important, not just to Alaskans or to Washington residents, but to everybody. And that can really help bolster the focus for this issue. But they need to hear it from constituents. That's the key. Politicians listen to their constituents. So with that, we're just about, we're getting towards Q&A section. If anybody's had questions, you could type those in the Q&A box, in the meantime, but we'll do those at the end. Real quick, we want to go over our financial position, and then we're going to talk about COVID related stuff. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Becky Machane, our financial administrator, and her and I will talk about our finances.
And
Becky?
actually, I wanted to let Reba Temple, our treasurer, have a moment if she wanted it to say anything about the committee.
Thank you.
I'll just say hi, and yeah, it's been a good year working with Becky. Becky's the real brains behind the whole committee, so I'm just kind of there to help when she needs it, but she is a rock star, so I'll just give it back to her, and she'll give you up-to-date info on where we're at.
All right. Can everyone see my presentation screen?
No, I think you're on the other screen.
Okay, let me pull it up. Sorry about that. Now?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. How about now?
Now it's showing the yeah, there you go. You got it.
Okay. So this slide shows our 2020 statement of financial position. This was also included in the annual report that was mailed out to everyone. Basically, the big takeaway from this is that we essentially broke even last year with a net income of $24,848. That wasn't necessarily how it was budgeted, but because of mainly pandemic stuff, that's where we ended up. Our assessment income was right around $3 million, and our expenses were around $3.1 million. The difference that kind of tipped us over the edge was a $100,000 grant from the state of Alaska, and that was for reimbursement of pandemic-related expenses that we incurred last year, basically in trying to keep things open, hand sanitizer, gaiters, masks, different groups that we funded, etc. The biggest expense category here is our programs and projects and program services. These are basically the funding for the different things you just heard about in our marketing, quality, and sustainability and outreach groups. So this is kind of where the budget for all of those sits year over year. Our personnel expenses, they show right there, $381,000. That's only about 12% of total expenses. And then obviously each of the staff contributes to the various programs and projects as well. And then the last expense category is other management and general. And this is only about 8% of the total. And this includes things like advertising, dues and subscriptions, overhead like office supplies, telephone and internet, accounting services, and then org-related legal expenses. So non-Pebble legal type stuff. So that's just a look basically of last year, 2020. And then when I move ahead, so this chart shows our expenditures by class since 2017. The solid blue line is the assessment income received. You'll notice a sharp drop that we're showing for 2021. And this is an income reduction of about 42% versus prior year. So we get paid 1% of the total ex-vessel value that fishermen get. And since the fishermen got a lower price, we also will get a lower price. And this does not include retro payments. Since the spring retro payments are paid in this calendar year, we would see those reflected in our next year's assessment. The 2021 column is an estimate, and you'll see that currently the majority of our expenses are in the marketing category. This is a lot of marketing efforts and programs that Leilani talked about. And you'll see through most of the years that the majority of our program expenses have been in the marketing. We still have 20% dedicated in the current year for sustainability and 12% related to quality programs. The small increase in org costs is mainly due to, that is where we house our outreach programs. So we're extending the reach of those programs. And Francis mentioned some of those earlier. And then it also houses some budget for conferences and conventions that we're hoping to be able to do this year that didn't necessarily happen last year due to the pandemic. So we're a little hopeful in our budget numbers there. This next slide should be pretty quick. Basically, that pie chart is just another way to look at the 2021 budget. You can see that marketing is a big chunk of our expenditures for this year. The chart on the right basically shows the blue, the bar lines are our income, assessment income every year since 2015. So you can see that since 2016, we've been steadily increasing with reaching a peak last year in 2020. And then the sharp drop for the green bar is our confirmed assessment income for 2021. So obviously it was unanticipated to have such a sharp drop. And that solid orange bar is the average harvest of all of these years, which is right around 200 million pounds of the fish. So we're hoping to see the trend go back up, back to hopefully where it was in 2019, 2020. I'm sure everyone hopes the same thing. And then I'm going to let Andy speak to this slide. This is kind of a snapshot of the BBRSDA financial position.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. So our cash position as of May 14th was nearly 4.6 million. We've got commitments for projects and spending of through the first half of FY20, which is essentially through June of this year. And those total 993,000. So that leaves us with total available funds of roughly 3.6 million. And by policy, we have a baseline reserve amount that we want to keep of at least 2.5 million. And that kind of allows us to, weather some of the swings, have funding available if a great opportunity arises, helps us sort of manage the timing differences between our expenses and when we get our assessments. But that is our policy, to have a baseline reserve of 2.5. So that leaves us with 1.1 million for net funds to fund operations, in sort of beyond the first half of FY21. And then we've got about 75K of recommended projects outstanding. That drops that down closer to $1 million. So, we're sitting at $1 million in terms of these net funds available. And then we're expecting to get assessment income of 1,744,000 this July or August. And so that'll bump our funding, our projected net funds. And again, that's net is what we have aside from our baseline reserve. So our projection is that our net funds will be around 2.7 to 2.8 million come August 2021. And that should carry us nicely through the rest of 2021 and the first half of 2022. So if anybody has any questions on that, we can take those after we talk about COVID quickly. And so to talk about COVID, I'm going to pass the mic over to Frances Birch. She's been doing a lot of work getting the COVID handbook put together, along with a contractor of ours, Ocean Strategies. And so take it away, Frances.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, COVID resources for 2021. Things will be much simpler and more straightforward than last year, but it's still really important to make safety our #1 priority. And as much as we are tired of hearing about COVID and ready to get back to normal, it seems we're headed that way. It's in all of our best interest to keep everyone healthy, keep processors healthy so they can keep cutting fish and we don't get put on limits, and keep all of us healthy there out on the water, as well as the communities in Bristol Bay. So less fear, less stress than last year, but still very, very important. There is the COVID Fisherman's Handbook, which is linked several places just on our homepage, but it's also at bbrsda.com/COVID safety. And it's mostly the packet will kind of help guide you, but look at the community that you're traveling to, as different communities in Bristol Bay do have different requirements and guidelines. So in Dillingham, they're asking everyone to submit a travel form. That is linked in the handbook, and it's also linked on the Dillingham website. This isn't something that needs to be approved, it's just something that needs to be submitted, and it really just asks your information, your travel dates, and I think it asks your vaccination history just to have on record. For vaccinated and or recovered, I believe it's recovered in the last 90 days, people need to travel with proof of your vaccination or recovery. For those who are not vaccinated, they're being asked to get a negative test within 3 days of travel to Dillingham and asked to quarantine for 7 days. If they're able to get a test on the 5th day or after another negative test, then you can leave quarantine after 7 days. If you choose not to or can't get a second test, then it needs to be a 10-day quarantine. And local clinics are really well supplied. They're ready for the influx of people with lots of tests and vaccinations as well. Encouraged to get tested there if you anything's in question, and even local health officials have asked really anyone after about 5 days in Bristol Bay if they can get tested. That will really help them catch anything early, and that's for vaccinated or non-vaccinated. That is just a recommendation, but something that the local health professionals are requesting. For Bristol Bay Borough, which is Naknek, South Naknek, and King Salmon, they do not have their own travel form or their own emergency order, but they are asking people to follow CDC guidance, which most of us are adjusting to, wherever we are right now. And but businesses may have additional guidelines, maybe asked to wear a mask or other requirements. So please do be aware of that with different businesses. Then Lake and Peninsula Borough has, I believe it's 16 different communities, and the emergency orders and requirements could vary by community. So please do look into where you need to operate and what they're asking for. And they will be coming out with, I think, a borough-wide kind of announcement and travel requirements at the end of May, so we're expecting that anytime. IGIGIC, I haven't seen it, in writing, but every meeting they're saying that they're sticking to last year's protocols. So they're asking everyone, vaccinated or not, to quarantine for 14 days upon arrival. And as soon as those updates happen, they'll be at lakeandpen.com, which is the borough website there. And we'll try to get them up as soon as possible too. But you can check and look for the community you operate in there. This is the COVID checklist. This is in the handbook, but it really just walks you through, are you thinking of everything before you travel there? So first is to contact your processor's fleet manager for their operating guidelines. Each processor probably has a little different protocol as far as their own property. If you check if you have access to the office, or if your container or gear is stored on their property, check with them about that. There might also be paperwork regarding the vessel that processors require. So please make sure you're in touch there. Next, review the State of Alaska Health Advisories, and it's advisory number 4, critical infrastructure, that deals with fishermen, and then appendix 2 is vessels, and 3 is SETNet. And while the state has no hard and fast requirements this year, there are a lot of, highly suggested guidelines. So please do be aware of those and follow them as you can. Next, review local guidelines. We went over this a bit, but anywhere you're traveling into or through, please be aware. If you're not vaccinated or someone on your crew isn't and they would like to be, vaccines will be available in local clinics and also in the major Alaska airports. So I believe it's Fairbanks, Anchorage, and Juneau. Starting June 1st, there'll be all 3 vaccinations available for anyone flying in as well. And the clinics, like if you have 1 shot before you go, you can get the second one in Bristol Bay or in the airport, or vice versa. Just please keep those records so they can give you the right second dose if needed. If you're not vaccinated, make sure, if you are vaccinated, gotcha. If you are vaccinated, just make sure you have a copy, whether it's on your phone or laminated or however you can keep it safe. Keep that with you just in case you need it. Contact business partners, whether it's insurance providers, vendors, boat yards, whoever you need to interact with. Just make sure you know what their schedule is. I know last year there was a shortage of some of these vendors, so just be in touch. Ask what you can do to help. Talk to your crew about best practices for disease prevention and working respectfully. So in the communities and business. So I know as permit holders, you might be a lot more tapped into all this information than crew, especially if they're new. So please make sure they're on the same page. Carry masks. Masks will be required in private businesses. And thank you for your question, Ivan. We can also talk about the mask. There's a Coast Guard mask mandate. And Andy, feel free to jump in. I'll give an intro, but you might have more up-to-date information. Basically, the CDC has asked the Coast Guard to, enforce mask mandate on vessels. And it seems that this was kind of written for ferries and a lot bigger vessels, but it is being applied to even small commercial vessels. And we've been in touch with the Coast Guard, and we know that the Alaska delegation is very aware of this and understands that it doesn't make a lot of sense to be applied to fishing vessels. And we've heard from the Coast Guard that they're taking a very common sense approach to enforcing it and interpreting it, and they're very aware of the safety risks that wearing a mask on deck could create for visibility and communication. And there is, as it's written now, there is some gray area in that masks are not required when doing an activity that the captain deems would be unsafe to do with a mask. But this is something we just know, you guys know, it's a small space that you're living in. It's hard to imagine, especially when you're outside, that a mask would help prevent disease on board. Andy, do you have anything that I missed there?
No, I think that covers it. The only thing I'll say is that we have been trying to be really strong advocates for the fleet to explain to the CDC and the Coast Guard and the congressional delegation folks that we're in touch with that, hey, this is a very different situation than a ferry or a cruise ship. It's more like a household situation than it is a large group quarters living situation. So hopefully we'll see some more common sense changes coming with that. But I think until, if and until that happens, Francis gave really, a really good summation of kind of where things stand at the moment with masks.
Thank you. Yeah, that brings us to the end. Just when in doubt, ask for the next steps to get your job done operating up in Bristol Bay. But we wish you all a very safe and productive season. And thanks for helping be a part of that. Oh, here's just where to get COVID information on the website. It's kind of all over the place, but yeah, it's there.
Yeah, and I'd encourage folks to print off the handbook, have it handy. That's the tool and the resource that we tried to, this COVID protocols and recommendations, they're all in different places, and we've done our best to aggregate that and condense that down to just what you need to know as much as possible. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. I guess before I close this down completely, would any of the board members like to make any comments? Go ahead and just unmute and jump in if you would like to do so.
This is MJ. I'd like to make a very, very short comment and thank both Andy and staff for their efforts putting this meeting together and through all of the efforts throughout the year. They're the ones that make this organization function. And without their professionalism, we would not be in the positions we are with COVID-19 and with our marketing program, as well as all the other projects. So I just want to recognize our staff for their excellence. And I'd also like to announce the results of the board elections. I neglected to do that. We had a board meeting before this, and the election results were, I was voted president, Fritz was voted vice president, and Reba was voted secretary treasurer for the next year. So those are your officers for this coming year. And finally, I'd like to thank Fritz Johnson and Tim Cook for his efforts on behalf of the board for his last 3 years, and Fritz for his yeoman's effort as president of the organization. He had to put out quite a few fires, and I just really want to recognize his efforts and appreciate his work as well as his friendship. That's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, MJ. And I just want to thank the board too. They work incredibly hard for this organization as volunteers and give us great direction. And they really help, support this organization and staff. And, they are the directors and they do a great job of that, I think. They're very dedicated, spend a lot of time on everything that comes across the organization's plate. And so just hats off to them, because without strong leadership and without a strong board and direction, we certainly would be kind of rudderless, right? So they do a great job, and we're so thankful to have their dedication. So with that, we'll wish you all good fishing and good luck, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.